Hello, Rob. How are you?
Oh, good. Thanks, Nippon. Cold in Australia.
Good to see you. Oh yeah, it is. It is. We have spring, beautiful summer here right
Good.
now. It's actually too warm. Rob, I understand that you are coming to London, and we are supposed to do an event together
Yes.
on social psychology of risk, and I'm really excited about
Good.
it. Um, for the sake of listeners, would you like to help people who don't know much about semiotics? Would you like to say a few
Sure.
words? What is semiotics to a layperson?
Yep. Well, semiotics is the study of signs and symbols mostly, and all of the things associated with signs and symbols as not just a form of communication, but as something that permeates every living thing we do because we're visual creatures. So so much of what we do is governed by speech. That's our mouth. A lot is discovered by our ears. We listen to the world around us. But so much of what we see that's visual is based on graphics and images and signs and icons and all sorts of things. It doesn't matter whether we're watching TV or driving down the road, we're constantly bombarded by semiotics, by signs and symbols, icons and memes and all sorts of things. So the study of this is really the study of the world around us. And semiotics is a bit like the air we breathe. You know, we call the air we breathe the atmosphere. But when you look at all the signs and symbols around you, in everything you see, we call that the semiosphere. So when I look at you, you know, already there's a something up on the wall behind you. There's some books I can see. There's a door. Your shirt and the color of your shirt is important. Your even things like your grey hair give information because grey hair is a symbol. In fact, depending on which culture in, it's a symbol of wisdom. So there's nothing we look at that doesn't convey a message, and it conveys a message to the human unconscious. So you know, if you have no studies at all in semiotics, then you wouldn't appreciate or have the skills to understand the visual world. So that's why we do semiotics.
Great, great. Except that my mother-in-law doesn't use, or she uses her hair dye, so she's not wise. I'm wiser
Well,
than her.
you
So
see,
that's nice to
you
hear.
see, that's simply another culture, isn't it? So if you dye your hair, then you're conforming to another cultural myth. And so that's, see, because semiotics is central to culture. You know, there's no, you imagine you walk into any culture across the globe and what you see tells you and defines the culture. The only trouble is if you go to anyone in the risk and safety industry, they don't include semiotics in their understanding of culture.
Which brings me to another question, Rob. That so why do you think the study of semiotics is so important to the risk and safety person?
Well, you know, it's funny. One of the most important things about risk and safety is it wants to say things to people. It wants to tell people what to do to be safe. And of course, it uses images and graphics and signs and symbols in nearly everything it does. It doesn't matter whether you've got a wear a hard hat symbol on a gate to go into a work site, or whether you've got a symbol for how to understand risk in a hierarchy. It doesn't matter what you do. Safety uses all these symbols and graphics, images, and visual forms of messaging, and most of the time it doesn't understand what it's saying. It doesn't know what it's saying. And so there are many, many messages which the risk and safety industry give off, which are contradictory to the things they're trying to say. And the reason why they don't understand it is they don't understand semiotics. And so what we need to do in the studying of semiotics is to get much, much greater congruence between the messages we try to provide and the congruence which speaks to the unconscious of the other things that go with the message.
So, in a way, what I'm hearing is that by studying semiotics, you can be a lot more strategic about how you convey
Of
your
course.
message and a lot more
Yes, of
consistent.
course. It's
Great.
like imagining a doctor who wants to perform operations but doesn't study biology. You know, if you're going to be a surgeon, there are all these essential things in order to do your job, even skills in how to have a bedside manner and how to engage and communicate and listen to patients. And in the past, the medical profession never even skilled their doctors in those things, such as engagement, listening, understanding, and communication. They thought that they thought that just their surgical skills was enough, and of course, 30 years ago they discovered it's not enough. If you don't have a good bedside manner and you don't trust the doctor, you actually won't get well. So there's an unconscious psychological dimension even to medicine. The trouble is, in the risk and safety industry, there is no dimension at all that connects with the visual world, the semiotic world, or the unconscious world. And so there are a whole bunch of things which people do which can influence a context greatly. But if you haven't studied semiotics, you will not know why it's happening. And what's more, you
Great.
won't be able to be strategic about it, which is why risk and safety industry tends to use linear semiotics. They use hierarchical semiotics, pyramids. Unless you understand a holistic sense of how humans communicate, then you're not going to go very far in influencing them, which is why safety has a very, very poor level of influence in organizations. Most of the time, the stuff they do doesn't work.
Great. So Rob, uh, this is a 2 days course
Yes.
followed by a semiotic walk. Would you tell us, or would you tell me, what can participants expect to take away from those 2 days, and why is the semiotic walk so
Okay.
important?
Well,
Maybe we can take one
when
by
you
one
begin to
both
see the
questions.
world semiotically, you start to see things which you never saw before. It's like it's like if you have no training at all in music, you can enjoy music, you can listen to music, but not understand the dynamics of music and how it works, right? And yet, the moment you study music and you can hear the dynamics behind the music, you actually then discover why it's emotional, why it works. So, when these people leave this workshop, they're going to understand the dynamics of semiotics and how they can use semiotics to be better communicators, better observers, and better listeners. So if you have no training in semiotics, then every single image that comes in front of your eyes is equal. You have no discerning skill to separate something from something else. And so what people learn and leave with is a set of skills in how to be more semiotically aware, and then when we do the semiotic walk on the Wednesday, that's very much experiential. We walk and talk, and I stop and I say to the people, okay, what do you see? Then they say to me, okay, Rob, what do you see? And they don't see anything that I see. I've been doing semiotics for 50 years. You leave the workshop with just a touch, not 50 years, but 2 days of skill development in better observation and better understanding of the visual world. And
Great.
if you've done so no semiotics, then you don't have the skills in analysis required to deconstruct what you see.
Such an important skill for people who visit sites and
Hmm.
uh, and generally work in safety critical industries.
Oh,
Um,
have you got time for a 2 minute story?
Absolutely, yes,
I
yes.
went, I went with Brian, who wrote the book It Works. I went with Brian onto a work site, and it was a combination of a 20-story building, and they were doing groundworks around it. and we're walking around the site, whatever. And I stopped and asked Brian, what did he see? And he saw all these hazards. He sees hazards. Oh, Rob, what do you see? And I said, well, the most fascinating thing I've seen in the last half an hour is that young woman on the excavator. And he said, why is that important? I said, well, because 95% of everyone on excavators are male. Very, 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 very rare do you see a female on an excavator that size. And I said, why don't we go up and have a talk to her and ask her, tell us about your job? He said, okay, let's do that. To this woman, and I said to her, tell me about your job and how you're going. And I said, tell me about the site and how's it going for you. In less than 3 minutes, she started crying. And she said, I get bullied constantly for being a female on this big piece of equipment, and I get sexualized all the time because of my role on this site. That came in 3 minutes from an observation of a person, not an object. And it blew Brian's head away. They look at everything around, but not the person. And we discovered a person who's been completely psychologically destroyed and harmed on a work site, and all safety cares about is the paperwork.
I know it's wonderful, Rob, listening to this.